Veronica, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, I'm not too bad. So, this week we are doing step 5, which reads, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Mm.
Again, Lou, I want to start by asking, how do you feel about that?
The language is pretty heavy, I have to say. Of our wrongs, I'd be quite. I mean, it makes me feel. I don't step into this going, oh, this is going to be fun.
I don't think anyone does.
So yeah, a sense of foreboding, I think, really, about the language that's used in there. But go on, you tell me more about it.
Well, again, one of the things about the 12 steps is they're not remotely original. They really were devised from very ancient spiritual wisdom. And if you even go back to the pre-Christian times and the Gnostic religions in the Mediterranean, they their religion was kind of based on this kind of formula of looking at yourself, admitting faults, making amends. Confession has always been part of religion and spirituality. So it's really based on that. But confession is such a almost abusive word now, I think. But
Yeah.
there is, I think, it very much recognises a very innate human need to actually be honest. I think there's a need for us to speak our truth, even if it's deeply shameful or embarrassing or difficult, which it can feel that way. And I think, as we said before, or I said before, it's really the thought of this that's much worse than the reality. I mean, I don't think I've met anybody yet who's like, fabulous, can't wait to do that one. No one wants to do that. But I think we deeply recognised, when we're alcoholics and we're just drinking so abusively, we lie so much. We lie to ourselves, to other people. We just live such a dishonest life, and that's so heavy. That there is a need to just be free of that and to lighten ourselves. I think the first thing I'd say is, it's really important to decide who you do this with. I mean, obviously put some thought and build a relationship with the person that you're going to trust stuff to. And I've listened to many people's step 5s, and there's been some very sensitive, shame provoking material that I treat, as being very sacred, and I want that person to really know that what they say to me is in confidence, and I certainly won't. I want them to feel safe. So you want to feel safe with the person that you do this with. It's not something you sleep in and do after knowing someone 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you've built up a relationship by doing the other steps, hopefully that feeling should be there. And I would encourage people, if you don't feel safe or trust that person, trust your instinct and don't do it. And do it with someone else. You'll be able to find somebody. And it's really, in some ways, this stuff is so simple. Sometimes just saying this stuff out loud really helps us move on. Like admitting this stuff. And the wording, the exact nature of our wrongs. I kind of want to focus on the bit that says exact nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, our egos have this tendency to be kind of like, I wasn't really, great employee. It wasn't, which is vague. The step 4 inventory is forcing us to be very, very specific and really look at, I stole from my employer, actually. That's why I wasn't a good employee. Not that, I was late occasionally. No, I actually stole. I was a thief. And we really do want to get to the specific and exact nature of the stuff we did. Be that we gossiped, or we've talked about people behind their back, or we've been manipulative. We really, really, really have to own that stuff in order to move on and be free of it. And that's why we've done a really specific inventory in step 4. And really, all I do with step 5 is I just get people to read out what they've written.
Okay.
So they just read out what they've written, and I listen, and I really listen to it, and that's it. That's really it. I know from my personal experience, I felt oh God, I just would rather have sawn my feet off than done that. But afterwards, I felt an immense feeling of relief and just feeling very light, and just like, I'm just glad that stuff's out there. And it was, the person I did was very loving and kind, and it was a beginning of a very spiritual experience. Another thing alcoholics do is we hide who we really are because we're so ashamed and disgusted of ourselves. So to have that experience of being with another human being and revealing the ugliest part of yourself and having them sit there in absolute acceptance is revolutionary. And the reason that other person can sit there in absolute acceptance the way that I can when I listen to people is, here's the thing, everybody's inventory is exactly the same. And I've heard hundreds. They're exactly the same. We've all done stuff we're really ashamed of. We've all done very, very similar things. And so I'm just hearing myself, So I can't judge. I can't, I'm just hearing myself. And that's why it's so easy to be loving and accepting of people, because we're just, damaged human beings who didn't do well in various parts of our life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. It does. I mean, I was saying to my husband after we discussed step 4, I said, actually, I really, and I don't wish to put you on the spot here, but I said, I really wish that Veronica lived in this country, because actually the person I'd like to do my steps with is with you. And he said, well, why can't I? I said, because she's heavily pregnant and she's about to have a baby, and I think she's probably got a lot on her plate. But I guess in discussing this with you, I really appreciate the need for somebody who is going to be very gentle with you, because you're revealing stuff that could, if handled badly, could have a very, very profoundly damaging effect.
Yeah, and again, when I take people through this process, I offer, I don't then critique it or take it apart. And I've heard people do that, like, oh, and then we sat there and, my sponsors pointed out all these things about me. I don't ever do that. I just listen. All you need to do is have the experience of saying this innermost stuff out loud to another human being. And that's so enormously powerful. The work kind of will show you everything that you need to know when we get on to step 6 and 7, which we're going to talk about next. That will just tell you everything. I'm not there to, I'm there as an equal who's just been through that experience, earlier on in my life. That's it.
Yeah. No, thank you. And the other thing that I was, when I was doing the volunteering on Monday, actually, and was talking to somebody else, was that I'm beginning to recognise when I'm being incongruent with myself. Does that make sense? And I don't know whether it's very weird. I don't know whether it's because of the mindfulness practice I'm doing or these conversations or where it's coming from, but I'm getting a very strong sense of when I'm BSing myself, I get this kind of physical bodily reaction. It's really odd. And I've never noticed that before. And I don't know whether that's part of the process of coming to know yourself better, I guess.
And that's the beauty of the mechanism of the steps, is with practice and application, that becomes harder and harder to do. Yeah, I mean, we're so brilliant at lying and manipulating ourselves and other people that the steps kind of just almost rip that away from us. I mean, it's not it's not that we become perfect angels and saints.
No.
But it really just becomes harder to not be congruent and not live in your truth.
Yeah. Thank you, Veronica.
You're welcome. So we'll talk about step 6 and 7 next.
Fabulous.